Great, thanks a lot, Jordan, for those kind words. So again, my name is Matt Fargey, and I'm the CFO with Maverix Metals. So here we have a cautionary statement on forward-looking information. Side note, I do appreciate I'm the last presenter standing between you folks and the open bar here, so we'll make this concise and hopefully get you out of here on time. There we go. So Maverix Metals, who are we? So we are one of the newest entrants into the precious metals royalty and streaming space. We're a little under 3 years old now, and in that short period of time, we've accumulated a portfolio of royalties of 80 streams and royalties, 13 of which of those are cash flowing. We've also had the fortunate of some industry-leading partners, counterparties, and financial backers as well. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of our business, so royalties and streams. How do they work? Royalties are fairly straightforward investment medium. We make an upfront payment. In return for that upfront payment, we get a percentage of the underlying revenue from the mine. Streams, very similar concept, albeit it's a right to purchase gold or another precious metal at a defined price well below spot price. What does that mean? It means we make an upfront payment to the mining operator. In return for that, we have a right to a percentage of their production. We purchase that production at a discounted price and then turn around and sell it at spot prices. And so the difference between that spot price and our discounted purchase price is effectively our operating margin, our free cash flow to Maverix Metals and its shareholders. The royalty and streaming model, why we're big fans of the model itself and what we like to focus on. So we are a precious metal focused company. The reason for that is that precious metal companies tend to trade at higher multiples than other metal companies. Cash flow and margins, we'd like to focus on producing properties or near-term development properties. The reason is that we really like taking that cash flow and redeploying it. And so what we've done is we've effectively built up a portfolio of cash flowing royalties. We've been able to take that cash flow, reinvest it into other investments, and effectively compounding our cash returns for our shareholders, which is great. Future exploration upside, that's I'd say one of the pillars in the royalty and streaming space. And so what that means is once we make that upfront payment, when we acquire a royalty or stream, that's the extent of capital that we're going to be putting into projects. So as miners go out and they extend mine lives, they're finding additional ounces of gold or silver for us, and we get the benefit of those ounces. Other benefits, long-term optionality, diversification and growth, I won't go too much into. Other things that we get excited about in terms of the royalty model, limited exposure to operating costs and capital costs, and we have very little involvement in the underlying operations. We see that as a benefit. So our corporate development team is focused on finding accretive acquisitions for our company and shareholders. So Maverix, where are we today? So in just under 3 years, we sit at a market capitalization of about $430 million US. We had cash operating margins of 90% in 2018. From 2017 to 2018, we saw 75% production growth, and our composition of revenue was about 95% precious metals to maintain that important precious metal multiple that I was just talking about. Who's behind Maverix Metals? So the company was co-founded by Mr. Jeff Burns and Mr. Dan O'Flaherty. Jeff Burns has a 30-plus year successful career in the mining industry. He was most recently the CEO of a company called Pan American Silver, one of the largest silver companies in the world, located here in Vancouver. Dan O'Flaherty is our CEO. He is an ex-investment banker. He was one of the original investment bankers advising Wheaton Precious Metals when they first started doing the streaming model back in the early 2000s. Yeah, myself, I'm an accountant by background. Before I joined Maverix, I was working at another larger royalty and streaming company here in Vancouver. I've been in the industry for about 10 years now. Insider ownership, we have about 11%, so we're well aligned with our shareholders. Key stakeholders, we have Newmont Gold Corp at 28% ownership and Pan American Silver at 26% ownership. Both those companies have representatives on our board, and besides having some cornerstone shareholders on our registry, we've found that we've received a lot of ancillary benefits as well in terms of we've been able to utilize their technical bench strength. So when we're evaluating different opportunities, we can draw on some of their experience and expertise or institutional knowledge to help us evaluate projects, which is great. The other advantage is both those organizations have very well-established corporate development teams. They're out there looking for projects looking at projects constantly. If they see something that they think is a fit for Maverix as a company, they pass that on to us too, which is great. Maverix history, so again, I mean, we're a relatively new company here, so we can start at inception, which is less than 3 years ago. So in July 2016, we acquired a portfolio of royalties, 13 streams and royalties from Pan American Silver. In December 2016, we acquired another 11 royalties, mostly in Australia, from a company called Goldfields. If you move to about June 2018, we did a number of bolt-on acquisitions, and then we did the largest transaction in our company's history, the Newmont portfolio package, and we acquired 51 different royalties. Since then, we've done 2 other silver streams. We acquired the Moss silver stream back at the end of December of 2018, and then we did the El Machito silver stream at the end of March this year. So I think, when I look at this slide, one of the most notable absence on this slide is we haven't done an IPO in the traditional sense yet. We haven't gone out to the public and raised money. So what we have been able to do is accumulate a portfolio of royalties and streams, and we've been able to utilize that cash flow and go out and purchase, or being able to deploy that capital into new royalties and streams. And then we've also, what the cash flow generation has also allowed us to do is go out and secure a credit facility. So back in June of 2018, we secured a $50 million US credit facility with CIBC and National Bank. Just in April here, we increased that facility from 50 to 75 million. So we have lots of financial capacity to do additional transactions. Maverix, so our production growth, so again, started the company in 2016, so we started out with about 1,400 ounces. We increased that to about 12,000 in 2017, and then last year we did it just under 21,000 ounces in 2018. Our forecast for 2019, we're expecting about 22,500 to 24,500 ounces, and so just demonstrates our track record of delivering on growth. Where is that cash flow coming from, our production coming from? Roughly 40% of that's going to come from Canada and the US, 27% from Australia, and 26% from Mexico. We're in mildly friendly jurisdictions, which helps reduce the political risk associated with our portfolio. Diversified asset portfolio, I don't need to go too much into this. Again, key points, we have 80 different streams and royalties, 13 of which are paying, again, in mining-friendly jurisdictions. Key catalysts or the value proposition that we see in Maverix on a go-forward basis. So portfolio growth, which is the underlying business of our company. So we look at that through 2 different lenses. One is the portfolio that we own right now, and organic growth. So we have a number of assets that are currently in development or ramping up production. And then the other lens that we look at through is acquisitions. And so on that $75 million revolving credit facility, we have $60 million available to us right now. And then we have operating cash flow coming in every quarter. And we like to see that all deployed by year end here. Capital markets growth, we announced this week. So we're currently traded on the Toronto Venture Exchange. We have conditional approval to move up to the TSX, and concurrent with that, we've applied to list in the US, and we're looking to go on to the NYSE American Exchange. We expect both of those to be closed by the end, I'd say 1 month from now. Leverage to gold, I think that's fairly self-explanatory. We have, as gold prices go up, we're going to see more cash flow coming into Maverix. And then the other part of that is it links back to the organic growth within the portfolio. We have a number of different assets that we have royalties on. As gold prices go up, we'd like to see a bunch of those assets being developed and put into production, which means more growth for a company. You bring all those together and the culmination of those 3 things, and we think there's a real opportunity for re-rating on our stock and shareholder returns here. So lastly, royalty valuation models. It's no secret out there in the royalty and streaming space that larger companies trade at higher valuation multiples. You can see on the right-hand side there, Maverix, we're on the very left-hand side. We have a nice runway ahead of us. We have what we think are some fairly, albeit maybe not easy, but methodical steps ahead of us. The TSX and US listing, which we just announced this week. Asset diversification, we're going to continue to go out and do creative transactions. That would hopefully increase our liquidity, especially with the TSX and US listing, and then that ultimately should lead to more research and analyst coverage, exposure of the company in the marketplace, which should create more access to capital. That should also do things like make us more eligible for index inclusion, GDXJ, which is effectively forced buying. And then there's also the dividends, which are a staple of the royalty and streaming space. We've been building up the cash flow engine, and at some point it would make sense to return some capital to shareholders. So I think in closing here, we've got a real solid track record of executing on our business plan, and we think there's a lot of good things to come for Maverix and its shareholders. So thank you for coming today, and we have a booth outside too if you guys want to come talk to us. We have a bunch of representatives from management here as well.